Welcome to the 611 Films YouTube channel. We are back in 99. I'm one of your hosts, David Groves. With me as always,
Neil McKay. What is up? What is up?
What is up? We are talking today about The Straight Story.
David Lynch. My man.
David Lynch movie. A David Lynch movie that is not at all considered a David Lynch movie.
It's definitely not one of the ones, everyone talks about,
Nope.
Mulholland Drive or Blue Velvet or Twin Peaks, but not this one, not necessarily.
Not at all. And it didn't really get seen. I mean, I think it got a lot of critical praise. The main actor, Richard Farnsworth, got an Oscar nomination, which I didn't know until earlier this week when I had not seen it when it came out. Didn't even know about it when we were talking about doing, obviously, this series, this idea of a back in 99, since there's so many great movies. You were the one that brought it up to me, like, hey, do you remember Straight Story, that David Lynch movie that's G-rated? I was like, what are you talking about?
I know, it's such a strange. I mean, it's a David Lynch movie, G-rated, and it's so wild. And I just saw it a couple days ago for the first time since it had come out in 99. And your recollections are a little different. I think I liked it a lot more when it came out than this time around. Like, I was like, okay, it's fine, it's good, but it wasn't. I think I was a little bit more enamored with it back then. And I felt like it was more of a, this is totally David Lynch, even though it's not. It's a G-rated. But I was like, that's only little pieces. Sure. Like the very opening, like you have, I always butcher his name, but the composer Angelo Badalamenti, who's like my favorite. I love him. Like, he always does all the David Lynch movies. He did all the Twin Peaks stuff. It was great. And he's got that music in the beginning, and then it kind of does these like static shots that dissolve into others of like the neighborhoods and stuff. And it's like, oh, this is so totally David Lynch, even though it's like this G-rated movie. So, and it's just quirky, just the dialogue, the characters, it doesn't, it's not that like horrific, like weird.
Yeah, not the weird.
What kind of beer do you like? Heineken? F*** that shit! Pabst Blue Ribbon!
Yeah.
But there was stuff he did with sound, and then the characters kind of interacting with each other that I'm like, oh, this definitely feels David Lynch, even though it's not his typical movie. So
I had never seen it. I went in kind of blind, other than like just kind of seeing the log line and then watching it and seeing what it is, and not knowing also too that it's based on a real person. It's based on a true story, which I didn't know, which is kind of cool. And again, just a really quick like backstory. It's about an older man who rides a lawnmower across Iowa into Wisconsin, 300 some miles, to visit his ailing brother, who I think at the beginning of the story has a stroke, and they had a rocky relationship, and now he's
they're estranged. Yeah, that's the key. Is like they haven't spoken in however many years. And I thought it was a very nice way to end that. Like, they didn't. He eventually gets to the brother, and it's a very quick kind of interaction.
Sure,
and hardly any dialogue, but I just thought it was so perfect because the brother, like, you see the brother realizes like what this guy did to get there. And they just sit on the porch, and it was like, this is like perfect.
And I have to bring up the first scene that really cracked me up. I watched it with our buddy Johnny, friend of the pod, roommate, all that stuff. So hilarious, because the first try on this trip on his older lawnmower, he doesn't make it. It dies, and then he really dies. He takes out a shotgun. I'm like, oh, he's going to go put down the lawnmower, isn't he? As like a complete joke. Like, it's an old 20-year-old dog. And I'm like, he's going to do it. He's going to do it. He's like, what are you talking about? He's like, nope. And then he shoots the lawnmower and blows up. He shot the lawnmower. I was cracking up. That was one of the best scenes in the whole thing. Because I was joking too. I was like, is he? But why else would... there isn't any dog.
I had totally forgotten about that until I saw it again, and I was like, oh, look at that. Because, I was like, wait a minute, I thought he was riding a John Deere, and it was this Red's old, whatever it was. And then that's somebody shot, and then he went and gets a John Deere, and I was like, oh, there it is. There's some advertising dollars.
The amount of times I was commenting, I was like, how much did John Deere put into this movie?
Like, it was
they're in there. It's a lot
front and center
on there.
But it's a very funny, like it's a very like kind of touching, kind of slow, but there's a lot of funny, quirky parts.
Very much a slow burn, but a lot of good character interactions. I guess when you say Lynchian, there's a scene where a woman hits a deer in the middle of the road as he's on his lawnmower on the way, and she's kind of freaking out. And the idea is that she's done this like 13 times in the last few weeks. Like she's killed so many deer. It's like now we're in Lynchian territory. It's a little bit,
a little strange, a
little weird, and that's about it.
Yeah, there was just, I mean, but it's just like if you watch Twin Peaks or Blue Velvet, there's a lot of these just kind of, again, it's just there's the street and there's you know, a windmill or whatever. It just these static shots that kind of dissolve into each other. You see that a lot in Blue Velvet, Twin Peaks, and they just, I mean, even I think the opening shot is like the next door neighbor, like sunbathing. I mean, just even that shot was like, this is like a David Lynch kind of thing.
Right.
But, and then there was some audible, I can't remember. It was some like thing was making this, and I was like, oh, that's like it sounds like a racer head or something.
Yeah, I think a lot of some of the different conversations on the traveling, you know, because at the end of the day, this is a road trip movie. You know, we did that road trip podcast. We didn't use that. I mean, maybe you told me then when we were in Asheville, this movie was kind of like a road trip movie.
Could have brought it up, yeah.
Because you know, it's got all the markings of that. He's on the road,
guys on a journey,
weird characters throughout the whole thing.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. And he was, and Richard Farnsworth, like I know it was a very like understated role, but I thought he really did a great job with it. And there was just a scene, and again, I don't really remember like the first time I saw it. I forgot that Sissy SpaceX played this daughter that had like I don't know if she was like mentally challenged or something like that, but she had this weird speech pattern thing. I totally forgot about all that. Yeah, because he goes into a story about how she was taking care of kids and she wasn't kind of quite upright, so they took the kids away from her or something like that. But
there was the idea was that she left them with somebody, and there was a fire that started, and then she was kind of blamed for the whole thing, even though it really wasn't her fault. But because of her. Again, they say mentally to say. I mean, it never comes out, and at that time, I mean, I don't know. For part of me was like, he says some line in the middle of it, like she's really good with memory and she remembered, like she knows this or that or something. And that made me kind of think, I don't know, is it autism? Is it kind of on the spectrum?
Yeah, they could, they didn't come right out and say it, but you're like, oh, okay, there must be something. You can just tell there's something off about the way she speaks and stuff. Like at first I thought it was a stutter, but then it was like, oh, there's something different. But when she gets a phone call that the brother, this estranged brother, or so it's her uncle, had a stroke, and it's just a shot of Richard Farnsworth just like reacting to this, and it just stays on him as you hear this conversation going on. And that shot alone, I was like, man, that's great acting. Like I just thought like this was right on the money. Like you could just see it. Like it's like, oh, I don't like this guy, but oh, something bad happened, and it's just like this kind of shock and processing, and you can see he's like, did he die? Is he alive? Like what's going on?
If you asked me with the Oscar nominations that he was the one guy, I was like, he was the older guy, and I don't know him. Don't know.
It was definitely,
didn't know the straight story, didn't know anything about it. I mean, he's been around. I mean, he'd been acting for years and years.
He was. I think he was mostly a stuntman, and he done. And I saw somewhere he was nominated for Best Supporting Actor, like in the 70s for something. Which I didn't realize, but and I knew he died after the Oscars, but what I didn't know was that he killed himself. And
I know, look,
pain,
he was showing that in the movie. He was showing with the canes and the pickups, and I think a lot of people, as far as the Wikipedia, people could, you guys can check that out yourselves. But I don't know. To me, that kind of pain that you might be going through. I mean, any cancer is awful and horrible. Don't get me wrong. But I don't know. I could see that being like this. It's almost pertinent to the character. I want to do this because there is a scene too where another guy he comes in contact with is like, buddy, I'll just get in the car. We can go. It'll be like, a couple hours to get to your brother. And he's like, nope, doing it on my own, doing what I want to do, how I want to do it.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It kind of, I think that's an interesting thing of I'm gonna go out on my own too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think he had he was definitely dealing with it during the filming of the movie, and I think he was pushing for like, no, I'm going to do this role, like, and
right.
you know, and but the pain was too much, and I think he shot himself, shortly after.
But hey, and then I just wanted to bring, and I also love the sequence too with the other older guy in the bar when they're talking about World War II. I would think that was just such a well written scene and such a cool, like, not a cool, like, it's weird because it's very depressing.
Yeah.
But
it
elevated something. Like, there was something about that scene that was like, this really makes the movie too, and it gives you a little more insight on his character and backstory and stuff like that.
Yeah, and it was one of those things. Like I think I either I forgot about it or it was just lost on me the first time I saw it. But I was like, oh, I don't remember this story, but this is like awful.
Yeah.
Like what happened?
Yeah, this is rough.
But yeah,
but it's great. It's great acting, and it has that sort of great little ambiguous. They didn't feel the need to overdo it with the ending, as you said, which I also really enjoyed. I really liked that idea, and it kind of comes full circle with the story about the brother and how it sort of ends. But with all that being said, it's on Disney Plus, so it's a G-rated David Lynch film, but I couldn't recommend it more. It's definitely I finally saw it.
And it's definitely not a David, like with those endings where what the hell just happened. It definitely has a very contained story where it's got, okay, we understand. We're not left with like, what? Like, what did I just watch? So yeah.
I recommend it, guys. But hey, thanks so much for checking this episode out. If you liked it, hey, give it a like, subscribe, comment. Why not do all that stuff? And we'll see you again on the next.
Super easy, barely an inconvenience.
Yeah.
To subscribe. Get it?
To subscribe.
Anyway.
All right. We'll see you guys on the next episode. Later.